Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Good Girls. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I love that we got Tyler back in the episode. I don't even remember the last time we actually saw Tyler, so it's kind of interesting, because obviously I like the cold opening, and then we kind of get revealed, like, okay, days earlier, because it turns out Beth, Ruby, and Annie are all out of money because obviously the entire operation has kind of been shut down while, like, you know, because there's no, like, clean money, so they're not getting any salary. So they're asking, like, Doug and Phoebe for one, but Doug's kind of like, no, we're not going to supply you one. It's like, dude, and how we're supposed to make a living? Well, what about our new lives? It's like, well, we're not responsible for blah, 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 blah. I mean, you would think, like, I would assume that them kind of keeping up a normal appearance of life, but I guess it's like, well, if you're not making any income, maybe they thought it would be suspicious. It's more so like they don't want to help them out. It's like, you're lucky we're not locking you up in jail, so, you know, we're actually doing you a favor, so why the hell should we, like, give you money? And truth be told, I think it's just Doug being an asshole about the whole thing, but it's like, I guess I can understand that point of view, but it just seemed like it benefit you to kind of keep them happy, because keeping them sustainable and keeping them going is what's going to eventually lead to you taking down Rio and his bosses and his whole life, because, you know, and everything. But I thought it was so interesting because, like, Phoebe's like, you have such pretty eyes, and Beth's like, what? She's like, what's that? It's like, you talking about eyeshadow? It's like, yeah, what kind of, we call that, like, smoky gray or something like it. It's like, I was like, Phoebe's so weird. And then later on, it turns out she's actually wearing the same, like, eyeshadow, because it's like, Ruby was like, she'll text you a link to it or whatever. And so she ends up wearing it later on. And Doug's kind of such an asshole because he's like, yeah, that isn't your shade or whatever. And she's looking like, oh, why do you have to be such a dick about it? Because the whole point is, like, don't, like, get it twisted and think these people are your friends and stuff like that. She's like, no, I did what I needed to get closer. Because that's the crazy thing. It's not like Phoebe was really friends with them. They were just like, okay, there's this weird woman. Okay, it's not like Phoebe and her were like, and Beth were like besties or whatever to begin with. But I wonder on some level, because it seems like the person she interacts with the most is Beth. So I think in her mind it's like, I guess because Phoebe doesn't seem like she's the coolest person. And I guess for her it's like, you know, oh, in school someone like Beth would have never talked to her. But it's like, oh, like, we're kind of forced to be friends under these circumstances. But it's like, we're not friends. Beth doesn't even, I don't even think there's a part of Beth that thinks you guys are friends. It's just kind of like, well, you're essentially the people with the keys to freedom, like keys to freedom from all of this. Dean from his circumstances, her from her circumstances. So it's like, I don't know, but, like, Doug's just trying to make her, like, he, like, uses the example of, like, yeah, there was a CI he got close to, but that CI was just using him, and it's like, yeah, they played me like a steel guitar, you know, but it's like, you know, and it's like Phoebe trying to act tough by being like, yeah, I'm making her my bitch or something like that. It's like, what? No, you're not. That's what I'm like, I don't know why, I guess, but because Phoebe's, you know, trying to act tough, you know, so Doug doesn't feel like he has such, like he has her so figured out. I guess, like, she's like, I guess Phoebe's trying to act like, oh, there's more to me than, like, you're able to realize, Doug, or something like that, you know? So, once again, they're in a position where they don't really have the money necessary to kind of take care of themselves, especially like on Ruby's case, because it's like Sarah's medication is going up again. They don't have enough to pay for oh, no bread, no peanut butter. It's like, oh, I guess we'll just do, you have Stan being like, oh, I guess it's saltine, crackers, and mustard. And if I need to, I can do Cheerios and barbecue sauce or something like that. But, yeah. And then, like, Annie, at first, like, when she was sneaking away, I was like, are you sneaking to do, like, are you... Because I thought that was connected to the robbery and stuff like that. She's like, oh, I'm going to go to work. It's like... And Ben's, like, super suspicious. And I love her being like, you didn't go to sleep a cop, but you woke up one. And it's like... Because Ben's like, all right, just go on ahead. Because it's like, Ben could tell something was up. But then we find out, it's like, oh, you're actually just straight up going to class. So I thought I was like, oh, that's interesting. Huh. And it's like, it's actually kind of sad because later on, because Ben's like, why didn't you say anything? It's like, because I didn't want, you know, in case I failed again, I didn't want you to kind of get any high expectations. Like, okay, cool, I believe in you, Mom, just for me to end up failing again. It's like, you know, because she doesn't want to embarrass herself in front of Ben. More so in particular, she doesn't want to let Ben down, you know? Because Ben's like her number one cheerleader, her number one fan. Yeah, like, yeah, Ben can be a little, like, you know, because he's the more responsible adult in a certain extent, you know, so it is a situation of, I think that's more so than anything, because like for Annie, it's like I need to be the more responsible adult, and I'm not always, and so I don't want to let you down because you're the one that's always kind of got to deal with the brunt and blunt of everything when I kind of don't always, So I just thought that was kind of an interesting reason why she was kind of keeping it like low key. But bringing Tyler into the fold, they're robbing that jewelry place. I love the dude's like, wait. Before Biff smashed it up, he's like, it's already open. She's like, oh, cool, thanks. And it's like, because they're wasting time because they're trying to wait for Tyler to get there. And it's like, and he's like, okay, you guys can go. I haven't even called the cops. And they're like, well, open something else. It's like, you've literally taken everything. They're like, just get on the ground. And it's like, where is he? And Tyler showed up late because he's like, sorry, I thought it was tomorrow. So this whole thing was a roundabout way of getting arrested. So it's kind of like, hey, if we're here, the fact of the matter is we're going to continue doing more and more stuff to rob because we need to like rob places just so we can survive, So if you're not going to help us, we're going to help ourselves. And because of that, you guys aren't going to get the case you need, because this case is important to both of them because it's also going to help their careers at the end of the day. So it's like, damn it. And also we kind of screw up. Because Doug had actually talked about that, like, dude, that CI that played him. He's like, yeah, it took me like 15 years to dig myself out of that hole. So if it's a thing of like, if they probably screwed the pooch on this particular thing, if they lose their inside touch to this particular case, not only is it, damn it was all for nothing. So we're not able to get closer to them because we lost our inside. But it's also like, this will probably blow back in their faces and it'll kind of screw them over. So it's like, fine, we'll give you an income. It's like the same amount we were making before. So they're getting paid. Ruby's got the money in front of Stanton. It's like, real or fake? He's like, doesn't matter. Now, talk to your boy Gene about, And so, like, he does all the stuff to, Ruby told him about the purse and everything about it being fake. It's like, you're selling fakes of fakes. So it's like, if you sell a legit enough fake, like, you'd be making a lot more money. So this way, showing his value to Gene, so Gene will give them more money, more of a cut of everything. So it's like, I thought I was hiring a badass, but I guess at the end of the day, I've got a prissy fashionista. So, which that leads to later on, it's like, Gene got me a big cut, and here's all these purses, and it's like, what are we supposed to do with this? Sell. Gene doesn't know any women that can afford to buy these purses, so now they're doing Gene's part on they're selling those purses. So it's like, okay, so many illegal operations going on under that one house. Ruby's got her whole thing with Beth, Annie, and Rio, that whole money laundering and making money. But then, like, obviously they're selling fake purses and stuff like that. Higher end fake purses, so at least they'll be making like a good chunk of, because let's not forget, they also got to pay for their son's private like school he's going to as well, so they're going to need the extra income. You had Annie trying to buy off her teacher. It's just like, yeah, I just need to pass this, not just for me but for my son. And the dude was like, just sit down. And it's like, at first I was wondering whether Annie was going to try and pay someone off to take things for her or something like that. But it's like, well, it's a test and you get caught cheating, you're just going to get a 0 or whatever. So it doesn't help. Plus, like, the person sitting next to her doesn't speak, English. She speaks Japanese. And it's like, and Annie's like, oh yeah, I know, like, same for me and stuff like that. So do their thing. What really surprised me about the Annie situation was like, Josh. I thought, like, and I loved how Annie actually handled it, because obviously it's like she's trying to, like, I love the whole thing, like, Creepo and 4A get better internet. And it's like she's trying to get her score. Then Josh shows up. He was just at his bachelor party. And Annie being like, whoa. You shouldn't come in here. The fact of the matter is you should actually get a therapist. You should talk to somebody. And I was like, good on you, Annie. Not kind of like letting him in and letting this be a mistake or something like that. But he was like, I'm going to crap my pants. I was like, no, you were so close, Annie. You were so close. But it's like, all right, let him in. But then they're on the bed together. I was like, oh, please don't let anything happen. Because I was like, I figured if something was going to happen, Ben was going to end up walking on in it, and it's going to be like a whole thing. But what I thought was really interesting is that obviously there's a conversation about, like, right, he doesn't poop around Lila. And it's like, it's like, well, what do you do? He's like, I go to, like, the nearby cafe. It's like, I go in there so much, they literally have a key ready for me to be like, yeah, it's here whenever you need it, bro. And it's like, well, what does she do? It's like, no, she doesn't do it. He's like, it's like, come on, she does. It's like, no, she eats so well that there's so little waste that she doesn't really have to go. So her bathroom smells like all perfect and like girly. And he's like, really? It's like, wow, she really is perfect. It's like, yeah, just not perfect for me. And then it's just kind of this thing of them kind of getting close, and you're like, oh boy. But then Annie, being, showing how much she's grown, says, do you want to be with me? Or is it you just don't want to be with her? And I was like, now that's a very important distinction. And Josh didn't really have an answer for that. And because of that, Annie kind of grabs his hand and they just kind of lay in bed together, And I think that's something that Josh had to kind of like sincerely decide, because I think it is a thing of he does like Annie, because they made that whole thing about like, yeah, he's like, yeah, you pooped and blew up like my office or whatever, my office bathroom, and she's like, oh, I tried to spray it. He was like, yeah, not enough. So it is a thing of, yeah, they get along so well, but that doesn't mean they're right for each other. So he sleeps on the couch. She wakes him up. It's like, no. She's like, you're good, but you do have to make a decision. And it is a situation where, like, and I thought it was kind of neat where he was like, you never really needed me. You just kind of needed to figure things out on your own. You need someone to kind of bounce stuff off of. But truth be told is, you were able to kind of resolve so much of this on your own, able to figure so much out on your own, and inadvertently ended up helping me figure things out. So I think this is them deciding, like, nah, there's not going to be a them. Whether they just stay friends afterwards. I mean, she's friends with her, she's friends with Ben's dad anyway. So I was like, well, things could... I mean, who knows if her and Josh could be, like, friends without it being, like, a complicated thing of, like... Because even friends with benefits would be not a good thing for them, because it'd also be, like, backpedaling for Annie, So when it's all said and done, they kind of hug. But Ben walks in, and it's like, all right, good luck to you figuring out your thing. Oh, good luck to you, too, figuring your thing out. It's like, and he has to be, it's not what you think it is. Okay, it was like that, but it was different because it was like that, but without the thing of, like, basically trying to say, like, yes, it was kind of a thing between us, but it was a thing without there being sex, and it's like, I called Mini Mart, you weren't there. It's like, all right, fine, I was at taking my GED again. It's like, whoa, for real? And it's like, yeah. It's like, why? And I talked about it earlier, like, why she had lied. And it's like, well, how'd you do it? And Annie was like, shit, I completely forgot. And they're both in the tub. And Ben's like, why does Creeper not get better internet? And she's like, I know, right? And it's just like, Ben's holding up. It's like, all right, I got it. And it's like, oh. And he's like, oh, I can't look. And Ben being like, I guess now we're both going to have to pay for college. It's just like, yeah. Which is like, dude, that's kind of dope to think about. Well, now Annie's going to have to balance, like, Ben going to college, and obviously herself going to college, and what that necessarily looks like, while also doing all the, like, shenanigans of stuff with Rio and stuff like that. So I was like, that's so fascinating. I'm curious to see what college is that going to be. I would assume that's something we'll get to see this season, is her at college. Maybe. I don't know. I think that'd be such an interesting thing. Some of the interesting people she'd get to meet and stuff like that. What those stories would necessarily... I don't know. I think it'd be so neat to see what... she hasn't really had an opportunity to tell anyone, but I'd be interested to see what, like, Beth and Ruby have to say to her when it's like, yeah, guys, so, like, I got my GED. I'm going to go to college and everything. Yeah! Obviously it opens up new opportunities for her and stuff like that. So I'm so curious to see where that ends up taking her, So there's all of that. Then there's Beth. Got to put on a wire and stuff like that. Obviously, Doug and Phoebe just telling her constantly, oh, well, what if this happens? Improvise. Well, what if this happens? Improvise. So she goes there, Rio, she's dressed up and everything. And Rio's kind of like, oh, hey. She's like, you want to pat me down or anything? He's like, nah, it's good. And goes in the back, and there's kids running around, and he's like, yeah, so this is my boss. And she's like, yeah, I'm Grandma. And I'm like, at first I'm like, is this just a family get-together? But then I was like, before the commercial break, I was thinking that, but then I was like, during the commercial break, I was like, nah, this is legit, it's a family business, which is like kind of crazy to think about. It's like, I would have never expected that. I would have, because at first I was like, oh, if Grandma's involved, it just must be in the thing. And I was wondering if it just stopped with Grandma, but with considering everything that goes out, I'm assuming everyone at the family table, I'm assuming it's supposed to be a thing of everyone in the immediate family, like everyone that was at that table is a part of the business. Because it's like, oh yeah, we've heard so much about you, Elizabeth, and stuff like that. So that's why I'm thinking like, yeah, the entire family's involved. And it's like, that's so interesting to know that this is like a family operation. Because the whole conversation too was like, well, what if like what if Rio's boss has a boss or something, and their boss has a boss or something like that, you know? That was kind of like a conversation about how this could be handled, but they know enough about Elizabeth, but it's like, oh, are you married? And she's like, you know, it's like, oh, you two are partners. It's like, it's not like that between us. I'm married. It's like, oh, how many kids do you have? 4. And Rio's grandma's like, oh, she's married, you know? But like his brother or cousin, because he kept being like, oh, like I'm his, you know, he's like, Elizabeth. And she's like, I'm just Beth. And he's like, okay, Elizabeth. I guess for him it's trying to be like, I'm not so like chummy with you like my brother is. But then like Rio kept being like cousin, and he was like brother, and Rio was like cousin. I'm like, what is it? Is it like a technicality or something like that? Is that what that's supposed to be? Like maybe someone else in the family, some stuff got like someone hooked up with someone else, so like they're cousins, but more so they're actual brothers or so. I don't know. Because I'm like, why would Rio like make such a distinction? Like it's almost like he doesn't want to acknowledge that they are brothers. But I guess maybe it's a thing of they're cousins, but they grew up like brothers. Maybe that's what's what. But obviously Beth kept getting nervous because every time Rio was touching her back, she was scared of like he might find the wire. So she goes to the bathroom. She doesn't know what to do with the wire. She doesn't throw it away, but she hides it behind some books. Rio finds her and is like, damn. And she's like, so what is this? It's like, I thought this, you know, hey, he's like, this is my family. And she's like, I thought that we were doing, this was business. He was like, it's both, you know, so. And obviously to keep him distracted, she improvised, which we have Phoebe listening in on. It sounded like some just nail tapping. It's just probably some hands. But you kind of feel bad, too, because you're like, oh, like, you know, Beth probably didn't want anything to ever happen again. I mean, to be fair, Rio didn't want anything to ever happen again between them because it's like, right, you shot me. I can never fully trust you again. But it's like, hey, I guess I'm foolish enough because he does like Beth. Like, she's very intelligent. She's very good at what she does. It's not just that she's useful to him. It's just the thing of, like, he legitimately likes her. And because of that, she is his blind spot. He tries to seem like he's more in control, but I think the rest of the family's kind of like, you know, as Rio kind of says as he leaves, it's like, they do like you, the rest of the family, because it's like, if the family don't like you, you don't get invited a second time. So it's like, they seem, and he's trying to say like, yeah, they do like you. So once again, except for his brother / cousin, because it was like I said, the way he was like, Elizabeth, like, yeah, I'm not about to get chummy with you yet. I want to see what you're kind of all about before I get too close to you, because it's like, once again, it's like, yeah, you might have kind of won over Rio, but I'm kind of a different case. It seemed like. Side note, I believe that actor is the actor who plays Joey in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., one of the Inhumans. I don't remember. I feel like season 4 was like one of the last times we saw him in a show. Maybe he popped up after that. I didn't remember. Like, he didn't pop up that often during the show. Like, he popped up, like, when he got introduced, it's, like, the most you really got to see him in the show. And then, like, he's made smaller appearances afterwards. Like, when, like, the team of Inhumans, like, would join up, like, be him, Yo-Yo, maybe Daisy at that time. Because I don't remember if Daisy was with the S.H.I.E.L.D. team at that time. I think she was back with S.H.I.E.L.D. when, like, Joey was around. Cause I feel like the team was without her, is what I'm trying to think. Cause I want to say that was during, I want to feel like one of the last times we saw him was during the Ida storyline, the second half of season 4. I want to say that was like, you know, with the LMDs and stuff like that. I want to say that was like the last time we saw him, so he might have popped up in season 5. I don't remember. I feel like he might have popped up one last time, but like I said, that might have even just been season 4. Regardless, but I believe that's the same actor. I could be 100% mistaken. But regardless, tangents and all that aside. So, things kind of worked out on that front. Obviously, on the side with Dean, like, obviously, you know, his daughter was like, oh, I want to go over to this person's place. And Dean's like, oh, can you get your mom to take you? She's like, no, I want you to take me. Because it's like, he's back home and everything, and his kids have missed him. So, but it's like, oh, well, FaceTime. Oh, it's not the same. can't that person come over? It's like, well, the dolls at her house are better. And it's like, okay, oh, what about you ride your scooter over there? She's like, I'm not supposed to cross the street by myself. And so it's just Dean is just kind of like, he's stuck there charging his leg monitor, and so he sees those guys riding on the bikes, and it kind of gets him excited because it's like, well, I have my freedom. I was like, you know what? I'm going to flex my freedom. So he fixes the bike and everything, and he goes out riding with them at night. But then, obviously, there's only so far he can go. Because, obviously, the conversation's also like, well, how did you manage to get me out? Because Beth is also struggling because she's caught between so much, because it's like, she's got Rio to deal with, then she's got Phoebe, and then she's got Doug, each one being their own headache in its own right and in its own regard. So she's being kind of split and turned so many ways because so many people are just a means to an end. Rio is a means to an end through Doug and Phoebe, who are also a means to an end. So she's just kind of like, I think it's just supposed to represent her kind of being torn in so many different places and different directions. But Dean, I don't know why I said Dan. Dean, is just kind of depressed because it's like, right, I'm just pigeonholed to this certain area within, the confines of my house. So I don't really have anywhere I can go. So Beth has the kids turn the TV up, and I think she finally just explains to him, like, what's what. Because he kept being like, how did you pay for the bail necessary for me to, like, get out of jail? And then it's like, I think she's explaining everything. I'm curious, is that going to include the assassins too? It's probably not just a whole, it's probably, like I said, it's probably everything. She's probably spilling everything that's going down, and it's like, okay, so you're getting closer and closer to them for the purpose of, because it's like, because he was also wondering, like, oh, who's helping you with all of this? And it's like, you know, does it really matter? She kept saying that, so it's like, well, now, like, she's, you know, it's like, I think it's also a thing where she just feels like Dean needs this. He needs to see that there is an other side to this, that kind of explaining everything that's going on. Like I said, I'd be so curious if she's explaining the hitman side of things, and you probably like, or would you also, because if she brought that up, she'd also have to explain like why Rio isn't dead. It's like, right, for your sake and everything, I had Rio kill the hitman that was supposed to go after him and stuff like that. Probably going to leave out details about the hitman kind of thing for you and stuff. I don't know. I'm curious, like, how much of this she's explaining. Is she just explaining the Secret Service side of things? We'll ultimately have to wait to see. I'm recording this late. Obviously, it's like Saturday at the time you're recording this, just because I'm finally like close to catching up with everything. There isn't an episode this Sunday, which will be tomorrow, because I should be able to get this up sometime tonight. But I don't think there's an episode tomorrow. I think it was saying that it's going to be like a May 2nd, so the week after next, I believe, will be the next new episode, I believe. Like I said, I could be mistaken, but like I said, from what I was seeing, it doesn't seem like there's one. But if I'm wrong, I will correct myself in the comments down below. So, but really, that's all I want to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.